Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you may find yourself as you listen to this and you're tuned into the only sports podcast for brains and bars. It's a black and white thing featuring
Mhm.
A1 and A Ward. I apologize for the late start because I did. This is why I don't announce when we're going to do a show. This is why I do just pop up shows because every time I announce it, something goes wrong inevitably. And at my job, something happened, and somebody had to be the person who cared about if this stuff went right, and I just happened to be that person. So I am A1. You can call me Dan. Someday I might retell the story of why I say you can call me Dan. You can also call me Carlos. Um, you can check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing by going to the podcast app of your choice, wherever you get the good podcasts. Search for It's a Black and White Thing. Same thing for YouTube. Search us up, look for us on YouTube. Listen, click subscribe, hit the notification bell, get the views up, hit the likes, all the good stuff. Share the podcast, tell a friend to tell a friend. It's those boys again. Because I would, while I want to have enough notoriety to make money off of this, I don't necessarily want to be famous.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a little extra pocket change from this show is appreciated. But
You
as
don't want.
always,
We don't want LeBron James tweeting or Instagram posting about us.
listen, no, I wouldn't be mad about it. Hey, if you wanted to come on our show and talk a little trash about Stephen A. Smith, you and conversely, even though I'm not a fan of how you've been kicking it lately, Stephen A., if you want to come on this podcast and talk a little
Right.
trash about LeBron James, you are more than welcome to. But yeah, I have decided that I just the level. So this is no shot at you, by the way. The level of notoriety that you have, I think that's good, right? You can People walk up to you randomly and say, "Yo, Ward, what's up? What you doing?" Right? Like I've seen you get noticed at we went to Oklahoma City basketball game.
Hmm.
Sit down, guy next to us goes, "Yo, this is A Ward." Like that kind of stuff, I'm cool with. But like people tweeting me on the internet just randomly or getting into arguments with supremely talented athletes, that's not really my bag. That's not me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway. As you can see, I got the homie Ward in the building. What's going on with you, man?
Man, doing all right, bro. Doing all right. It's been a long day. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, my days are never like that crazy to where I can complain, but I just feel like it's just kind of been a long day. I've been up all day and been very productive. That's good. But yeah, I started to close my eyes a little bit there. About 6:37, 6:40. I was like, might try to go get a little nap in, you know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how I was feeling.
Boy, I gotta tell you, I gotta stay off of Twitter while we do this show because you
Yeah.
like. So I just want to say, and maybe there's going to be more of an explanation. Trump 2.0 has got me kind of tuned into politics more than I've ever done before, and so because I'm really curious to see how this administration will go. And I see a headline that says Senate overturns rule limiting bank overdraft fees to $5. Like, why? Why would you do that? Not that I'm in a space where, I'm overdrafting these days, 20 mid-20s me, this was like, bro, like I would be really, really upset about this mid-20s me. But like, bro, like why? Why
Yeah.
would you do that? Anyway, um, but yeah, I hear you, man. Like tomorrow's is my off day, even though I'm going to be very busy during my off day. But I'm excited that at least when the alarm goes off at 6, I'm not obligated to move. It's not that I move anyway when it goes off at 6, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like I don't have to tell myself, okay, you got like 15 minutes to lay here and now you have to get up. I can at least
Yeah.
ignore that feeling for a little bit. So anyway, we got an interesting show lined up for you today. Couple of topics we want to get into, and this is the start of, I think we are 4 weeks away from the NFL draft, or maybe three at this point.
Yeah.
But we're going to do this. We did this last year. I thought it was pretty cool. We're going to go through mock drafts, select, not who we think they'll take. We're not doing any prognostications. This is what we would do if we were the GMs of these teams. But before we get into that, I want to start by, because this is the hot topic of the day, and we'll kind of jump into a little bit about use this as a springboard to talk about battle rap. Obviously, shout out to Chilla Jones, Shark Tank. Is Shark Tank. My brain is fried.
Takeover Battle League.
Takeover Battle League. I think Shark Tank might have been one of their like events.
Shark Tank was actually Chilla Jones's first league, and I think it kind of gradually evolved into Takeover Battle League.
Okay, thank you for connecting the dots for me. But Apollo's coming up, so we're
Oof.
going to use this topic to springboard into Apollo. Talk about your battle versus New Jersey Twerk and the card overall. So if you haven't, somehow you've been underneath the rock, you don't know what's happening. Stephen A. and LeBron James, this saga continues, unfortunately, for the rest of us.
Right.
LeBron, one, he gets on some, maybe it was Pat McAfee, which, we understand why he did Pat McAfee. It's not just because he happened to be in Indianapolis playing a basketball game. It's because Stephen A. hates Pat McAfee. So he does the Pat McAfee show. He gets on the show. He talks trash about Stephen A. Smith. Trash may be a little harsh, but he does crack jokes at his expense. He talks about all of the back and forth that they've had. And so, of course, because Stephen A. cannot allow anyone to have the last word, he gets on First Take and starts, you know, I don't understand this whole diatribe he was on about, I could talk about why you didn't go to Kobe's funeral and why your son really had the heart issue. And I'm just like, bro, what you want? Like, what, what I'm saying?
That's
He
wild.
came to get
Yeah.
personal. He came to get personal with him.
Yeah.
And so, I, we, I think we've talked about this in group chats, but not on the show. So what is your response to this weeks long saga of Stephen A versus LeBron? Like, how do you feel about all this?
I mean, it's weird. But I guess I don't follow the journalistic side of it close enough to realize that it was that big of a deal. Like even whenever you see, Stephen A. Smith on the sideline and LeBron talking to him, I was taken back by that. I was like, oh, LeBron really don't like this guy, but I didn't know that that was any kind of history. You know what I mean? Just because I don't pay too much attention. If I watch something, it's usually part of the interruption or maybe even around the horn or something like that. I don't really do the whole daytime Skip Bayless, Stephen A. stuff. So I didn't realize, but so then once there was that issue or whatever, um, I thought I was kind of just now realizing what was going on, and at first I was kind of on Stephen A.'s side because I was like, yo, like, LeBron put a lot of pressure on his son. You know what I mean? He's the one that said, yo, my son's better than half the NBA. My son's this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, it's just all right. Well, LeBron's kind of being a big crybaby right now, after, jumping out the window with some of his statements. But then when this all goes, and then now I'm starting to realize there's a whole lot more to this. And there is, like Stephen A obviously feels a type of way, about LeBron. And it's not so much of like an unbiasedness. It seems to me like Stephen A is like got an issue with him, Um, I can't hear you. No. Can you hear me? Nope, I can't hear you. Mic check. Is it my headphones? Let's see. Says I'm still plugged in. Check, check, check. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. It's on your end. Yeah, I can't hear nothing. Oh, nope. I can read your lips. That's it. I can't hear you.
Really?
Now, boom.
All
Got
right.
the really.
All right. All right. All right. Sorry. My headphones, something happened. My headphones just like disconnected. So you were saying the last thing I heard you say is now that
Yeah. Long
you
story less
kind of
long. Like now that I'm starting to realize that there seems to be it seems to be bigger than what just the Bronny James stuff. You know what I mean? It seems to be like an ongoing thing in their relationship, from a journalist to player. Um, and I think it's interesting to see LeBron James. I mean, I guess this is the end of his career. Maybe maybe he's feeling a little bit more like, we saw him do the podcast with JJ Redick. Now he's jumping on Pat McAfee. Like he's feeling a little bit more like getting in front of the camera and speaking his mind. And I find it hilarious.
yeah, yeah. I think there are jokes to be had here. I think this is kind of like a little mean girl high school thing playing out in front of the world. Um, I want to take a step back and just kind of start at the beginning, and then I'll make my way to today's current events. So I do think that what Stephen A. did was a little patronizing, however you want to say the word, because I don't. First of all, this idea that LeBron was or that Stephen A was out of line for criticizing him as a father being a bridge too far, I thought was ridiculous because we have no problem questioning fathers of parents or fathers of children who, if we think that they are mismanaging their children. We did it with Richard, with Serena and Venus Williams' dad, Richard. We did it with LeVar Ball and his boys. This is a really old school reference, but Todd Marinovich's dad, and if you remember that story, we did it with him. Baby Gronk, if you want to bring it to the current time of time frame, like we have no problem critiquing your parenting if we feel like you're not handling your children in a way that we deem fit. That's number one. The way Stephen A went about this was goofy. He sat there and talked about, as a father, LeBron, I'm begging you. Like as if like we had caught Bronny like smoking crack or something. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like the tone was just really patronizing and really it was over the top. It was sensationalized. And so if you wanted to have an issue with the tone and the way he presented it, sure. But this idea that critiquing him was the bridge too far was crazy to me. You know, when LeBron confronted him, fine, you feel away. When you feel away, however you choose to confront somebody, that's your business. I'm not here to critique that. And even Stephen A's initial response of when he first got on First Take and he had the hush tones and man, I really, as I understand I was dealing with a father at that point, which
Yeah, yeah.
duh, because that's how this whole
Hmm.
thing started. But then he went on Gil's Arena. And I think he might have did his podcast before Gil's Arena. And the change in tone was like, bro, you weren't talking this spicy when you were sitting on First Take. Like, I don't know what happened. And he tried to claim that seeing him talk to Richard Jefferson and saying, well, it really wasn't about Bronny, it was about me, which again, we knew this already. And it just seems from then on, Stephen A has just been antagonistic of LeBron. I mean, just
So is that what
you
LeBron meant by like he's on this Taylor Swift tour or whatever?
Bro, he was on Gil's Arena. He did his show. He was on Fox. Was it Fox News? He was on Fox News talking about it. He went to like 4 or 5 different platforms rehashing the first event at the game and just kind of talking
Hmm.
about it. And like I said, in certain places, he was kind of turning up in ways where it was just like, well, when that man was in your face on the court, you
This is
weren't,
not the.
you weren't, there wasn't that energy wasn't there. And it
Yeah,
and it just kind of went on and on and on and on of him talking about it. And so yes, that's what LeBron was addressing. Um
gotcha.
and so again, like I just one, if you felt that you were right, Stephen A, it did not matter that, the head of CAA or William Morris Agency or whoever or that Larry David was sitting courtside. If you felt you were justified, then that energy that he had in all these other spaces and places, no one was asking you to box LeBron or get
Yeah.
into some type of physical altercation with him. Stand your ground. And you didn't do that. You waited until you got to the safety of these mics and these cameras. And then you, I don't know if this is how you really feel, if this is just like some WWE stuff for you, but like you turned up in a way that you didn't while he was in front of you. And so I think Stephen A I think LeBron, like I said, LeBron is being a little bit petty, but Stephen A, to me, as the journalist, he has to know better and he has to do
Where
better. So
where did the I would have swung it? Where did that come from?
I don't know. Like I
I
forget
didn't
what
know if it was
pod.
something LeBron said on McAfee, and then Stephen A. was like, had he put his hands on me, I would have swung. I'm just like, I was so confused at where that came from.
Bro, like so I saw Nick Wright say this and he says, Nick Wright says that Stephen A is doing what all of us do in our bathrooms, like in our showers, when an event happens and we replay it in our head and we go, this is what I would have done, or this is what I
Hmm.
should have done. And I felt like a lot of the energy that he's exhibited since First Take has been, well, if I was standing in front of him, I would say, well, you weren't saying all that bleak to me when I was like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Like, and so, like the whole, well, if he put hands on me, we would have fought. Like LeBron didn't say I wanted to beat him up. He didn't say I was going to put hands on him.
Yeah.
He said, I was protecting not only my son but other players. That's what he said,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
wild.
so like Stephen A is just like, and shout out to Three Letter Man. I need to watch his channel. We had like a brief interaction this morning where I was just saying like, and this is what I want to use as a kind of a jumping point to get into battle rap. I said I feel like Stephen A is acting like bloggers in battle rap, right? Where they jump out the window a little bit, they get a little reckless, a little loose lipped.
A little too comfortable. Yeah.
The talent, the battle rappers respond like, bro, what you on? Like, what's up with you? And then all of a sudden, the bloggers then turn up and then they escalate it because this whole thing is still a story because of Stephen A. If Stephen A would have ended this with the first take comments, and then when asked about it, not he was going to be asked about it, right? He had already planned
Yeah.
to be on all these shows and all these spaces. He could have downplayed it. Look, I addressed it on first take. I understand LeBron's frustrations. I
Yeah.
stand. To me, he could have stood by what he said. The principle of what he said. I stand by
Yeah.
what I said, but I'll let him have the last word on this, right? Um, but I feel like he was acting like battle rap bloggers, and so I want to use that as a jumping off point to start here because one of Three Letterman's, I guess, kind of counterpoints that Stephen A. said is that LeBron James only wants to hear the praise, never the criticism. It's not enough that he says he's the best of all, he's the second best of all time, that he's a great father, that he's a great philanthropist, that he's a great husband, all of these other platitudes, right? He feels that LeBron that it's not enough for LeBron, that truly the problem is that he won't acknowledge LeBron as the greatest of all time, and it's Michael Jordan. And so he doesn't want to hear anything but you're the great, you're the GOAT. So I'll start by asking you this. Do you feel, and you can use yourself or other battles as an example, that battle rappers can be a little too thin skinned when it comes to critique? Not hate, right? I want to be clear, not hate, but critique. Because that was the heart of what Through Letterman was getting to. We can say that we love you, battle rappers. You do great, and when you do great, we praise you to the high heavens. But if you choke or if you stumble, no show, if it's a lackluster performance, you don't want to hear that and you guys get in your feelings. And again, I'm taking a little bit of liberties of what he said, right? To be fair to him. But how do you feel about that?
Well, ultimately, I think whether it's battle rap or sports in general, at the end of the day, um, we don't believe that you are qualified to talk about what we do. You know what I mean? We have a lot more grace for someone who has been at that level. If there's a journalist or someone like a Kendrick Perkins or a Richard Jefferson or a podcaster that played, or something like that. There's a little more grace that we have because you know what it takes to get there. You understand the sacrifice. You understand what talent is. So for the most part, like when looking at journalists and bloggers and different things like that, it's like, yo, your hard work is just paying attention to us and writing about what we do. And it it in the back of our mind, we're like, we don't need you. Like we don't need you to do that. Now, does it push the sport? Does it does it create dialogue? Does it create all that kind of stuff? Does it probably, create promotion and more money and drive that kind of stuff? I understand. Yes, it does. But at the end of the day, like when it's coming from the lips of someone you don't believe should be able to talk to you in the first place, it should always only be praise in our mind. Because the minute it's not praise, then it's like, well, you just don't get it. I'm not saying that's right, that's correct or not. But what I will say this is it's very hypocritical for a battler or for a player or whatever to accept the praise and um, be frustrated with the criticism. You know what I mean? I think the important thing to do is to say that's not a valid source. I'll take Tay Rock for instance, right? Last year, 2 years ago, going into the champion of the year, right? Big K wins it. Then he beat Twerk and maybe even Rock was similar come up there. And Tay Rock went on a whole you know thing about champion of the year. It's this, it's that, it's this. Boom, boom, boom. Black. Blah, blah, blah. 1 year later, when he's crowned by the same people, Now all of a sudden you know what I mean? How is it that I look at a panel or I look at a group of people and say, when you had it this way, you were completely wrong, but when you had it this way, you're completely right. No, I either trust that you can actually, crown me just as much as I trust that you can, you know what I mean? And so that's when it becomes hypocritical. It's just like, you know, so for the most part with me, when I'm taking like paying attention to a blogger and maybe I think to myself like they don't get it, they don't watch battle rap the way I am, whatever. Like like I'm not going to like I'm not going to be super super hype, if they're like, yo, Ward's the best or whatever. If I've already been like, you guys are crazy, you know what I mean? I'm not going to but so like and I just kind of cut off some of those sources where I'm just like, all right, I know what you're doing. I know what kind of blogger you are. I know what you do. You're here to talk. You're here to do this. You're whatever, blah blah. But I don't think you really have the credentials to talk about it. So, but I could go on for this for a long time. But I mean, and I assume it's the same way, like as LeBron and as anybody who does something at a high level, like your gift and your talent is like your child. You know what I mean? Like it is that precious. And can't nobody come to you and tell you your child ain't cute. Some of them babies ugly as hell, but the way you look at your child, you know what I mean? So the way you look at your child is this is beautiful, this is perfect, this is blameless, this is you know what I mean? And and a lot of times, bloggers and different people like that are not just talking about your rounds. They're not just talking about your performance on the court. They're talking about something that is very, very near and dear to your heart. And then that's where you have to be more. You have to ask yourself, do I report the news, or do I am I a media journalist blogger? You know what I mean? Like to me, Scott Van Pelt, he gets on and he reports what happens. You know, you're very educational. Very, this is what happened. I think there needs to be more battle rap media that reports, hey, A1 and True Foe just had an incredible 3-round battle. You know,
Mhm.
um, it was on this league. Many people have A Ward having it. Many people maybe have True Foe having it. It's 3 rounds. Watch it. Tell us what you think. It's a little easier for media to report that than for even somebody to say we had A Ward first and third, da 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 da. True Foe had the greatest battle of the night, whatever. Now True Foe's like, come on. So yeah, it's definitely good to have media, but also like I never understood like somebody turning around and being so happy at the same people who just put them gave them criticism the week before or whatever, and then now because they got it the way you saw it, that just doesn't make sense to me.
So you made this point about you feel like media should simply report on. So I guess I feel like it's kind of hard because so so I'll use you and Tay Rock to kind of stay on that same wavelength, right? I think the immediate aftermath of the Tay Rock battle, I mean, people were kind of like it was just okay, right? Like people didn't think it was trash. People didn't think it was great either. It was just okay. And I think part of that was because of the hype, obviously, because of the two names involved. This battle has been a long time coming, so on and so forth. So you're saying that if they simply need to, so again, if they say, well, check out the battle, we thought it was just right? How do you feel as a, and I feel like I know the answer because I can remember the conversation you had with Three Letterman on our way back to the spot that night. But like, if that's the report, if they're simply reporting, they're not necessarily saying Tay Rock 2-1, War 2-1. They're simply saying it was just it was okay. But still, go support, go check it out. Then how do you feel about that? Because again, they're still
I
reporting,
mean,
right?
but
They're
that's
not giving a
that.
bar breakdown,
Well, they're. I'm saying they're not. They're report. They can report that it happened without putting their opinion
their
into it.
opinion.
You
So
know,
if
um, it's been a couple times that like when I got off the stage with Charlie Clips, like in the building, I felt like it was a fun, great battle or whatever. Then you get online and everybody's like, man, whatever, da 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 da. It's like, okay, that's how you feel. You're watching it from there in the building. Everybody's coming up, yo, that was amazing. It was fun, da 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 da. Tay Rock battle. It was a feeling of like. But there's also a couple events that weekend, a lot of different factors that go into it. So if all of a sudden you're stamping a battle with like the most reputable media outlets afterwards of that, then people are going to look at that and just assume that that's what it is. It's
Mhm.
obviously not what it was. It's going to be a million view battle, and it had all kinds of crazy good stuff in it. Um, but like all of those things are like, I mean, it's ad based on what you were expecting. What if the other person was expecting something different? Somebody in the crowd is like, "Oh, this is my first battle event ever. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen." I didn't know battle rap energy was like this. Oh my gosh, two of my favorites, amazing classic, whatever. So I think it's just important to be like to realize that like if you're a reputable media outlet and you can sway whether someone is going to want to pay attention to that or not, especially in battle rap. Because, like I said, this isn't basketball. I can't just look up and say, oh, 92 to 88. You know, like, oh, that must
Yeah.
have been an amazing game. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was 92 to 70 with, 4 minutes left and some subs got thrown in. And, it was a blowout up until, the last whatever. But I mean, at least I can say, oh, I know the result of this. I don't need to go watch it back. But in battle rap, it's like the minute that you're a reputable media outlet that people go to for the highlights. Because let's be honest, a lot of times when we're not there or we haven't seen a pay per view or whatever, we go online and we have the people that we pick out that we say, I trust what they're going to say. All right, cool. Now guess what? I'm never going to click on that battle. Man, from what I heard, it was meh. I'm good. Maybe one day if I'm bored and I just feel like watching battles from that person, I'll go back and watch it. No, like so you can really deter people if you have, a platform that a lot of people follow. And so I think that's what's
Interesting.
in it. Like I said, that's what comes with like from a battle rapper standpoint. It's like a lot of these people could never. They would get on stage and piss themselves. You know what I mean? Like they would literally like they couldn't put together 12 or 16 bars. You know, like uh, like at least most of these journalists in sports, at least most of them probably have some kind of degree, some kind of communications major, maybe something, they've written for something, and then all of a sudden they've created jobs for themselves and they get to the point to where now, whether or not they can play basketball, they have done what it takes to get that job for the most part. Some of them can just retire from playing football and just get you. But so um, like in battle rap, you have people who get to crown champion of the year who don't know like what a cadence switch is. You know what I mean? Who don't know what a double entendre is. Or who can't pinpoint and say, like this is what you are doing. You know, they're conditioned to watch battle rap to know what a punchline is, but they can't even report the punchline. You know how many times I've watched Showtime, for instance. Shout out to Vodafone and Showtime, right? Cool, whatever. Yeah. Showtime won 106 in Park, right? Freestyle Friday. They said, "Oh, he's a rapper or whatever." He gets every point every time they talk about. Well, A Ward said this. No, that's not what I said, and that's not what that means.
So I want to pause right there. I do want to offer a little bit of pushback. I do feel like in the past, you probably had people who were on the Cody panel who probably could not do that. I do think Jay Schmo and M Lang, because they have been two of at least the last couple of years, right? They've been the main people who've been on that panel. I do think they have a better understanding of some of those concepts that you speak of, right? And obviously, Black the last 2 years has had battle rappers on there. Obviously, Geechee and Chilla were this year. I feel like Chilla was also last year, right? Like
Yeah, he
Chilla was
was.
in 23. He's had battle rappers on the panel. I think DNA, I can't remember exactly how many battle rappers and who they were. I do know Chilla's been the constant. So I do applaud Black and shout out. First of all, let me just give Black his flowers. You know how this program feels about about you, Black. You're one of the goats, one of the greats of this culture who's always sought to push it forward through critique, through interviewing, through champion of the year. So I will offer a little bit of pushback there. Yes, I do think it is important if you're going to get into this space to be able to understand more than just a punchline. Understand when they get into different pockets, understanding metaphors, similes, chain punching, I'm gonna say assimilation. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Alliteration, probably.
Ah, what was that?
Just alliteration.
Alliteration. Thank you. Alliteration, right?
Hmm.
You want to be able to understand some of those concepts so that you can break it down. And so that you can be a little bit more informed because there are battles I watch where someone will say, oh man, they won because they were punching, right? They were punch heavy, the punches landed, so therefore they won. And I'm like, well, you can feel that way, but this other person was they were rapping. Like there was
Hmm.
just the multis were just on top, the rhyme schemes, the patterns, and the punching, right, was really nice. Maybe it wasn't at the same rate, maybe it wasn't as heavy as this other person, but you have to take all of that into account when you try to pick a winner and a loser. And as someone who sat here on this program and critique battle rappers, you're right. My father asked me the other day, yo, did you battle rap? You ever battle rap? No, I cannot battle rap. Yes, I can rap. I can put words together. But I never if I multied in a bar in a song before, it was by accident. I never sought to put together a multi syllabic rhyme in my life. Right? I just, hey, if the last words rhyme, good job. Right? So I mean, but I also know what sounds good too, in both a technical sense and in a
Yeah, yeah,
just a
yeah,
simple what I find to be enjoyable. So I do think that it is possible for someone who doesn't do it to critique. Because to be honest, right? I listen to battle rappers talk all the time, and not just battle rappers, but I listen to retired athletes talk all the time. And I go, "What are you talking about? What are Gil?" No disrespect, because I do appreciate the platform, but like Gil's Arena is like to me when they say a broken clock is right twice a day, that describes Gil's Arena because every time I see a clip, I go, "What are y'all doing? What are y'all talking about? Y'all sound crazy, right?"
mm,
And so while I will listen, right, to a battle rapper or an athlete or ex-athlete or even current athlete, right? Talk about their craft, talk about their game, and I will have an appreciation for that. To me, I'm not Skip Bayless, but I'm also not going to just simply back down because, well, I played the game. Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
cool, but you can also be wrong. Like even though you
yeah,
played the game, you can still be that doesn't
yeah.
make you infallible. You know,
No, yeah,
so I do think there's space for both. I think there's space to have people offer critique, but I do agree you need to be up. You can't just simply be tuned into punches or it's tuned into a preference. So street talk, right? Real talk rounds. People have preferences for anglers, right? And so if someone is going to be angle heavy for 3 rounds, and you simply going to pick them because, well, I enjoyed their angles, forget about whether it was true or not, right? Because I mean, there's battle rap is so nuanced that
yeah,
it's never simply a black or white thing, but right? It's never simply black or white. There's a lot of gray there. And so I just think if you're going to get into this space, one, you have to have a love for this. You have to have an appreciation for the people that you cover, which I do feel at times is lacking. I think as from a battler standpoint, you have to understand that yes, you guys are immensely talented, and what you do is great. But some of these bloggers, again, I'm going to point out a Three Letter Man, a Jay Black, a Let's Talk Battle Rap, Jay Schmo, M Lang. I'm going to mention Black Compass. Black Compass has had has had controversy within their ranks throughout the years. Even someone like Angry Fan, right? All of these people have had high moments within the culture. They've had some low points at certain parts within the culture. But if as a blogger, whether you have done this at a high level, small level, or at all, you got to have an appreciation for the people you cover and understand that you are here to push this culture forward. You are here to take this beyond just the people who enjoy this, but to the casuals and to the people who has never heard of this before. And so I think I've referenced this before on the show. You had the compliment battle with Chef Trez, right? And you have I forget which round is it the he's so nice I won't I don't feel comfortable saying anything behind his back, right? That went viral, right? That's the one that went viral when they posted it. And so I had family members, now people who know who you are because of our affiliation in this show, but people who've never seen you battle before go, yo, they're hitting me up saying, this is hitting my feed, right? And so when things happen like that, or when Hitman drops an album, or when Bill Collector releases a movie, Shotgun Suge, and his like we as and I'm involving myself in this, even though I don't consider myself a blogger, but as a fan of the sport, we have to do everything we can to praise, yes, to yes, praise you guys to the high heavens. And when you guys have not met the mark, because I do think for someone like yourself, the standard is high, right? So if A Ward battles Trufo and it is not an A Ward that we are used to offer that critique, but don't simply offer that critique in a heavy-handed way, which is I think is the issue. Again, to go back to our beginning of this subject, that was the issue with Stephen A. He could have had his critique, but he was too heavy-handed. He went too far in trying to be an entertainer. And I do think if you get into this space, there is a fine line one has to walk between information and entertainment. And I
Hmm.
think if you're going to get into this blogging game, you have to, yes, you're going to have to be entertaining if you're going to get people to watch your
Well,
channel, but you also have
you
to be informational.
I mean, when I talked to Acho, he told me all the time. He said, "Ward, I'm here to make good TV." Like and that's his job. I mean, we a lot of people's favorite Will Ferrell is Anchorman. You remember Anchorman? Like, and they literally just are going back and forth on ratings, news rating. Who's got the highest news ratings? You know what I mean? Like that's the chase. Like the chase is all money driven, all popularity driven, all how can we get the most views? You know what I mean? And so um, when it comes down to it, there's a compromise on everything. It's like, yo, I might be saying something about Justin Herbert that I don't necessarily fully agree on, but we're gonna go with this because it's gonna get the trending topics. It's gonna get the people riled up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and the same goes for battle rap, and that it's just tough because it's like, yo, we know it's popularity driven. We know if you want to push, this person or you want to push that person, that's the even bloggers, they know if I interview, or talk about Hitman Holla, then I'm gonna get more views than if I just go talk to, Hansel after he just gets done with a clip. You know what I mean? And it's like, yo, like you have to find a fine line for people to respect you in reporting, what that was going on in the culture and just, what do they call it now? It's called farming. What is it? Something farming, like
Engagement farming.
engagement
Engagement
farming,
farming.
and it's just kind of like, like, and the one thing I'll say is even though I might look at a media member or whatever and say, you know what, you still don't get it, or maybe I disagree with them. The best way for me to be okay and accept criticism is to know that you put the work in behind the scenes in watching and in paying attention to what goes on. You know what I mean? Because if somebody comes on here and it's just like, all right, Ward, they won. You guys do a podcast show or whatever. They're like, yo, Ward, how do you feel about, Alex Ovechkin getting ready to pass Wayne Gretzky's, total or whatever? And now all of a sudden I need to have some kind of knowledge of how long it's taking Ovechkin or points per game or anything. And I can't even give you any of that because I haven't watched it. But all I do know is that he's six goals away from it or whatever. It's like I shouldn't really be talking about that. And if I want to say, well, nah, it's still Gretzky, he's the GOAT, whatever, like that does not validate it because I don't really do the work behind the scenes. And so I do know that whenever I speak on certain media members, I'm like, yo, even though I feel like they might have got it wrong, because I know that they're watching, I know that they're paying attention to these things. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but like, when you're talking about like a Cody situation and a panel and stuff like that, I know for damn sure, 1,000% sure, Chilla Jones, Ichigati, Emerson Kennedy is not watching all of those battles that they're up. You know what I mean? Like they're not. It's just not happening. They have not watched those battles. They have an idea of who says who won what, but they haven't done it. Now, M Lane, J Smo, maybe more close to 80%. Maybe watch the big ones or whatever, a couple one rounders, whatever. Might not. You know what I mean? It's a lot of battles. It's a difficult job. It's a thankless job too. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't. It's no matter what. Only one person's happy with you guys at the end. Is number one. Everybody else thinks they should have been somewhere else. You know. And so for to sum that up, it's just like, yo, for me to be more willing to take the criticism is when I have a conversation with you and you say, well, Ward, like, to be honest with you, we loved your year. However, there were moments like in the second round where it's foe where you just weren't as sharp. Or there was a moment where when you battled DG to Piranha last year. and you went out there and it's a cool battle, but you could tell it wasn't warlike. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, okay, cool. I hear you. Like so that's the best way to get me to be okay with the criticism.
So we really could do the rest of the show talking about this, but we got to move on. I do want to ask one final question because you talked about reporting. And so we'll close on this. And by the way, I know Chilla has talked about a lot of behind the scenes stuff and maybe content as it relates to Apollo. I would love for this part of this media battle discussion to be had at some point. So shout out to Battle Rap Trap. Battle Rap Trap to me does a really great job of reporting things that happen within the culture, right? Sometimes, sometimes things happen that are off the field, so to speak, right? I mean, we'll bring up Papoose, Remy, Easy, right? Just as an example, because that was a really big thing.
Yeah.
Should battle rap media be involved in things that happen but that are not related to battle rap, right? But it happens to be that there's something that is going on between two battle rappers, but it has nothing to do with promo for an event. It has nothing. It's beef. It's issues. It's back and forth. It's yelling at each other. It is turmoil, strife. Should they report on those things, in your opinion?
I mean, listen, like at this point, like it's a job. It's they're making money. They are making a living off of their YouTube views and things like that. So now, since this is a revenue, a stream of income for them, you know, assuming that they wouldn't is ridiculous. Like and you say battle rap trap, and I rock with Di and everything, but like when I look up Di literally just records everybody else's content and posts it to his page. You know, and pops on there and says, "Okay, well, such and such says such and such." You know what I mean? And just like I wouldn't sit here and act like there's any kind of creative, you know what I mean, like level to a lot of what he does, and maybe I just don't watch a whole lot of it. But what I'll see is a whole spacious thing recorded and posted, or a whole interaction on Twitter. Well, Hitman Holla says this, and now Miss Hustle says this, and now you know what I mean. But what I'm saying is like he's built a reputable platform to where people go there to pay attention to see what's going on, so that they don't have to do it.
But
So,
is that not reporting though? I mean, is that not
uh,
is it, when you think about the news, right? The news is simply they're not so to go back to your earlier thing, right? You said, "Hey, don't put your insert your opinion into it,
mhm,
just report it," right? So when he records that space, right, he gives you
yeah.
some background and some info on what the space was about and what was happening, and then he lets it go. Right? Is that not reporting? And it's true
I
as
mean,
hell. It,
is it like if ABC News gets on the scene of an elephant giving birth at the zoo, and then Fox News takes ABC's news footage of it and reports it. You know what I
so
mean?
well, I think that's the internet, though, right? Like that is the internet in and of itself, right? And that's what happens when you don't have these things happening in a controlled space. The internet is like the wild, wild west. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
set
yeah,
up shop, and then people show up,
yeah.
essentially, right? But because in that scenario you just listed, yes, this elephant is giving birth is making news, but you also have, and I mean, the scenario still holds true. You have battle rap trap showing up. They're getting the audio. They're posting. They're taking what they feel are the best content. You have maybe Cola. I know he's kind of in semi retirement right now, right? But Cola or Black Compass shows up. They get the audio. Yo, they was talking. I'll use Polo. They was talking crazy in the spaces. Here's the background. Boom. Listen for yourself. I mean, that is. I understand your point of well, it's not. There's not really any quote unquote originality to it, but in its
Yeah.
truest sense, that is reporting. I mean, that they're simply giving you the context, giving you the information, and you get to make your what you feel is your judgment or opinion on
Yeah, and I guess we started with the question of like, should they do that when it comes to non-battle rap related things? And my thing
it. Yes,
is like, absolutely. Like this is what they do. They report what is going to get them clicks or what they feel like people want to talk about, and
that's
want
fair.
to
That's
want to
fair.
know about.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's I mean it is just I'm happy whenever you say a compliment battle thing went viral when somebody's reaching out to you about this, because most of the time the things that go viral are not a great look for battle rap, like the
That's
Remy
true.
Ma situation, like it's all over everything, Revolt and Complex and Joe Budden and everything. That's not a good look for battle rap, that Remy is with this dude, Easy the Block Captain, who now Papoose, and it's like, yo, like, what? No, we need like, we need New Jersey Twerk going crazy on Funk
On
Flex
Funk
or Sue
Flex.
Star,
Yeah.
or something like that, and like to boom, oh, check this out. This is what battle rappers can do, um, but the gossip is always going to drive the numbers. And it's always everybody wants to always have opinion on somebody's outside of the art form, and that's another thing is like Stephen A. Smith. Some of this stuff is not basketball. It's family, it's personal, it's this that and third. And like I'm sure those podcasts that he goes to and talks, get numbers. I'm sure they're doing numbers. I'm sure it's a nice little check. So why would you expect any different?
Yeah, I mean, look, shout out to Shannon Sharp, but I mean, I feel like the interview at the beginning of last year with Cat Williams changed. Like, I hope maybe at some point there will be some retrospective where Shannon talks about his media career, but to me, he owes Cat Williams a lot because that interview changed his life. I mean, that granted, it's not like he still would have been Shannon Sharp. He still probably would
Yeah,
have got these interviews, but I think it made it a lot easier for him to book a lot of the guests that he's gotten since then because they saw, like you said, they saw the numbers of what happened when Cat Williams showed up on that platform and got the
yeah.
talking a little spicy. So yeah, so to close this out, man, again, this program, whether we agree or disagree, we appreciate the people who are not trying to be messy, right? Like, let's start there. Again, you can report, you can give your opinions, you can talk about these things, but I think there's a heart behind it that matters. And like Ward said, if Ward can discern or can tell, hey, you really care, you're really watching. I think as an artist, and I'll speak for him, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. He appreciates that. If he knows you're watching, he knows you're
Hmm.
supporting, and that again, it comes from a genuine place and not from a place of antagonism or trolling or hate. I think most battle rappers would appreciate that. I would say again to those who are trying to do this, you gotta truly be about it. You can't, yes, you're gonna do things for clicks, you're gonna do because again, it's entertainment based. You're trying to get people to your platform. But really care about the art form, really care about the culture, really care about the people. And as a body, we need to, like you said, New Jersey Twerk was on Funk Flex, man. Go blow that up. Go share it, all the clips, give the support when these guys are doing things outside of the culture of just simply standing on the stage. Support that, man, because that's how you help these guys cross over, and then that's how the culture elevates in and of itself. All right, this is a very fascinating conversation, one I would love to continue, but let's move forward. Let us know what you think about this. Hit us up at Brains and Bars, Twitter, Facebook, IG, TikTok, and let us know your thoughts on this subject, man. So let's jump into